And welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Today, the 13th day of November, and it's a beautiful day out there in Brisbane. In fact, it's a glorious day out there. 21 degrees and sunny after all the rains and the storms. And boy, was it some. There was very high winds yesterday. We could feel it up there. Very, very strong winds. But right now it's glorious, 21 degrees and sunny here in Brisbane. It is wonderful. But of course, what we have to report is some new cases, in fact, 2 new cases. And here's our Premier with that report.
We've got 2 community cases and they are linked, which is good news, both in home quarantine, so not at risk. And then we've got 2 new cases from overseas, and once again, they're in hotel quarantine. But we are still concerned about the Gold Coast, and the Deputy Chief Health Officer will talk a little bit more about that in a moment. But the 2 cases we have on the Gold Coast, they are clustering together. So we do need to find out that link, and we do need to make sure that people are getting tested and getting vaccinated. So we need to see those good testing numbers, and we did have 9,474 tests in Queensland over the last 24 hours, so those numbers have come up from yesterday, which is great news. But if you live on the Gold Coast, let me make it very clear, we need to make sure that we do not have community transmission. So we need people to get tested, and if you're asked to home quarantine, we need you to follow the directions from Queensland Health. So we've got schoolies coming up very shortly. So we are concerned, and if you can't socially distance, please wear a mask on the Gold Coast. But the next, like I said, the next 24, 48 hours is going to be very critical. But good news today, we don't have any new cases on the Gold Coast, but we need to make sure that we monitor that very closely.
And it is very important that it's being monitored and monitored very correctly. As we know that the cases that have been known, that's okay, but if there's unknown cluster, then there is a sort of a degree of concern there, and of course the community would be quite concerned as well coming on to the schoolies, as she mentioned, of course, and we coming on to the break. The border restrictions are easing, and I can see a lot more people out and about without the masks now. So, these are signs of the times to come, but, we have to be wary of the numbers that might be increasing. Well, if you saw, by the way, the Brisbane Indian Times latest issue is out and about. Pick up your copy from your favorite outlets, and if you can't find one, just let us know and we'll arrange for some deliveries to the nearest outlet that might be, in your area. But the lead story that we have there is on this. Welcome. And why is Queensland building 2 of these quarantine facilities?
At an old horse stud on Queensland's Darling Downs, something extraordinary is unfolding.
We have a reputation at Wagners of getting things done, and we built the airport in 19 months and 11 days, and we like to do things quickly and get it going.
This is Wellcamp, Australia's first private airport, and soon to be Australia's first privately owned but publicly leased quarantine centre.
Why should public money go into a private facility like this?
Well, look, we wanted to build it as quickly as we could, and we wanted it to be of ongoing value.
But the federal government is already building a quarantine centre 100 kilometres away in Brisbane, raising the question about whether the state really needs 2.
I find it very hard to accept that a state of Queensland with a lower population and lower incoming passengers than New South Wales or Victoria needs more quarantine beds.
What we have done here in Queensland throughout is ensure that we're well prepared, and having this facility will mean that we're well prepared, and I think better prepared than those states.
The idea of building quarantine accommodation outside of Brisbane was born of frustration.
Mass evacuations of an inner-city quarantine hotel have been taking place throughout the day.
Canberra had effectively delegated its quarantine responsibility to the states. Back in January, Queensland's hotel quarantine system was faltering.
3, 2, 1, go.
This is when an influential Toowoomba family business entered the story.
We put a proposal to the government, a market-led proposal to the government to build a 1,000-person facility here. We felt that we could offer a safer alternative to hotel quarantine, and we felt that sometime in the future would actually help the airport.
The Wagner Corporation is developing an airport, business park and proposed entertainment precinct just outside the regional city of Toowoomba, all with tens of millions of dollars of Queensland government support. What do you think's the secret of their success?
Very, very good negotiators, I'd say.
Larry Pappin's farm borders Wellcamp, and he's witnessed, with growing trepidation, the site's remarkable growth. He was alarmed when the Wagner Corporation succeeded in convincing the federal government to change the original route of the inland rail so that it will now run past Wellcamp Airport, just over Larry Pappin's boundary fence.
Before we've got planes, trains and automobiles now. Yeah, how much more does one community have to endure?
The Wagner Corporation's latest project, the Quarantine Centre, also had its local detractors, including the federal LNP member for the region.
And as this played out, it became very, very clear there'd been no consultation at all, not with the high levels of the hospital, not with the police, emergency services. There'd just been no consultation at all.
And the centre looked like it may not be needed. And the federal government announced it would fund its own 1,000-bed quarantine facility on Commonwealth land in an industrial suburb next to Brisbane Airport. But within 10 days of agreeing to the Commonwealth development, the Queensland government announced it would be funding its own quarantine facility.
What fantastic value it will be if we can avoid just one lockdown.
It was a very strange jump. The Premier was adamant she needed 1,000 beds. And when the federal government came and gave that, with the Pinkenvale facility, that number jumped to 2,000 with no explanation whatsoever.
For most of this year, Queensland was arguing it only needs 1,000-bed quarantine facility, and then all of a sudden the demands went up to 2. Why was that?
Well, that was, if you recall, that was around the same time as the explosion of cases in other states, and that led to a big surge in demand for our hotel quarantine. I think we peaked at over 3,000 rooms.
By now, the Australian Medical Association of Queensland was becoming concerned about how all these beds would be serviced.
The actual announcement was a bit of a surprise, not only to AMAQ but to the Queensland Health staff at Toowoomba Hospital and the region itself.
And doctors are still calling for greater clarity from Queensland Health.
In the area I represent, in the Downs and in the western sort of corridor, we don't have enough staff to man our own hospitals, so I think it's going to be very hard to find staff for these quarantine facilities when we can't even find doctors and nurses to man our local regional hospitals.
Why hasn't that been addressed?
We will address that in the implementation of how we manage the facility and how we staff the facilities. Toowoomba is a pretty significant hospital, and every time I hear people say that it's not, I get really defensive. It's a good hospital.
The AMA says there's ramping problems, there's staffing problems, it's struggling with demand already.
I think it's our best run regional hospital.
There's also the question of what happens once COVID quarantine is abolished.
We've got a number of projects on the go. Our Wellcamp entertainment precinct, it could take the total facility. There's inland rail coming through here, so there's plenty of things to do with the facility.
The Commonwealth last week revealed a possible scaling down of its Pinkenvale facility to only 500 beds, which will open months after Wellcamp. All the more reason to build a second centre, the Queensland government argues. For sceptics, it's a sign Wellcamp may not be needed after all.
Do you accept there's a risk this could become a white elephant?
Throughout this entire pandemic, we've made decisions based on being as prepared as we possibly can be. And look, if at the end of the day we don't need this facility for the health response, it has another use, but I'd be really, really pleased with that outcome.
So there you go, ladies and gentlemen, whether it's needed or it's not needed, it's going ahead and without the federal funding, which was promised for the block of land in Pinkenba, but not in Toowoomba, and Queensland government said, no, we'll go ahead, but we will go ahead in Toowoomba. So it's going ahead. How much use does it get by the time it's ready will be something to watch and see. Well, Prime Minister has been questioned on many things. He's been visiting a lot of Indian businesses lately as well. One of the questions that's been raised to him, and a point blank, was, has he ever lied to the public? Here's that report.
We now have a million Australians in manufacturing jobs in Australia. Under Labor, 1 in 8 manufacturing jobs went. We've been able to turn that round as a government through our economic policies and get 1 million Australians back in manufacturing jobs here in Australia. And we're doing that by being smart about it. We're doing it by backing in Raja and Savvy and so many other people like them who have invested in the facilities, in the technology, importantly in the people and the training, the products, the research that enables them to be a great success in manufacturing.
Good to see that the funds are being invested in manufacturing, and because manufacturing is the way get so many people a lot of jobs as well. Here's the second report when Prime Minister says he's never told a public lie.
Madras curry powder. All week, Scott Morrison's team have been setting up made-for-TV tours like this. The PM's been cooking, eating and posing for selfies in an attempt to show how Australian life is finally returning to normal as vaccination rates rise.
It's an important day for Australia because we have passed the 90% first vaccination rate right across the country.
But as campaigning resumes ahead of an election likely in March or May, Mr Morrison has been repeatedly quizzed about whether he's ever lied.
I don't believe I have, no. I'm in politics. People take sledges at me all the time.
Prime Minister, you said earlier today you've never lied in public life. Is that really true?
No, that's what I believe to be true. And if, what are you suggesting? When do you think I did?
The questions come off the back of a major policy U-turn on electric cars, and after the French president and then a former PM accused him of dishonesty.
Oh, he's lied to me on many occasions.
Predictably, the opposition claims Mr Morrison is now lying about lying, though few politicians enjoy being asked this.
Have you ever told a lie in public life?
No. What I do is put forward Labor's policies.
And today it was arguably the Deputy PM who was most open with his answer.
Probably.
And also just no shame about that?
Well, I don't know. If you ask me a personal question about my life, I don't have to give you the straight answer.
Most politicians accept that the public thinks they lie from time to time, but trust at elections is very important, particularly if a campaign is light on policy or points of difference. And at the moment, the opposition, the Greens and even minor right-wing party One Nation are all trying to portray Scott Morrison as unreliable. This afternoon, the government finally released the modelling underpinning its plan to reduce Australia's emissions to net zero by 2050. It assumes that by then, if the world acts and we do nothing, emissions would drift down anyway by about 50%, and forecasts the Coalition's plan to invest in new technologies, including some that are yet to work as promised or even be developed, can help get the country to about 85%, though some climate scientists are very sceptical it'll work.
You've got to think of 2030. If all you're thinking about is 2050, forget it. You're going to lose the game.
A new, more ambitious 2030 target is still a very contentious political issue that neither major party has committed to. And it's a topic that's likely to feature at some point in the campaign to come. James Dengay, ABC News, Canberra.
And that last clip was from Melbourne, where the Mahatma Gandhi's statue has been inaugurated and the Prime Minister was there. So it is good to see him out and about, but as the reporters have mentioned, that maybe the upcoming election campaign has already begun. Well, New South Wales prepares for flooding.
It's been a busy night for our SES crews and our partner agencies throughout the night. We've, in the last 24 hours, seen another 260 requests for help from the community. Probably of most concern to us is that in that same time frame we've seen an additional 10 flood rescues, and all of those have been as a result of people driving their cars into floodwaters. So that's particularly concerning for us. We can respond to the storm damage, we can help the people out when they need it. We are preparing for flooding in parts of New South Wales as well, but those life-saving decisions of not entering those floodwaters is what we're urging the community to think about.
Because there's no amount of water that is sort of safe to drive through, is there? I mean, you really, it's not sort of do you, don't you, it's you just say, just don't do it.
That's correct, yeah. So obviously there's lots of different studies. It takes as little as up to 15 centimetres to move a car sideways in some moving water. So we really want them to make a smart choice. Somebody's waiting for them to get home. Somebody's waiting for them to arrive at work this morning. And it might seem like a quick trip if I go through the water versus a long trip if I don't. But at the end of the day, it's actually about getting home safe. You know, we don't want to have to rescue anyone, and we don't want to put our rescuers' lives at lives at harm in going out there to conduct those rescues.
Yeah, we're just looking at some pictures that wasn't the case of someone driving into the water. The couple who were in their caravan and had just set up camp next to the water bank. It just seemed to rise so quickly for a lot of people.
Yeah, that's correct. But the river systems are unpredictable, and depending on where they are in New South Wales, so we're continuing to watch the systems in the northern inland of New South Wales. The flooding around there will be with us for a while. Once the rain stops, that doesn't mean the flooding goes away. It can often happen upstream.
And that's quite rightfully said, that even if the rain stops, doesn't mean the flooding is going to go away. If it runs, further upstream, and it will come down. And of course, if it's flooded, forget it. That you can't get any clearer or blunter than that. But of course, in some unfortunate circumstances, you're not driving through, but you already parked there, or you have set up camp, and all of a sudden, all the water comes through. That is very, very unfortunate. But for driving, people who actually drive through, despite all these warnings, it's just not good. Well, before we go into our daily India report, we know that today is the music concert for the Sargam music. Here are the girls telling us how to get there.
Hi everyone, I'm Sasha. I'm from Sargam Music Academy. Tomorrow we'll be performing at VMAX Somerville House from 5:30 p.m. onwards. Parking to the venue will be from Gate 6 and Gate 7. Tomorrow, there'll be lots of things happening. There'll be music, dancing, mouth-watering food, and raffle prizes that you can win. So, book your tickets online fast because tickets are selling out. Link in description. Bye!
Yes, wonderful, and we'll see those girls up on the stage today. It will be a wonderful event. And if you haven't got your tickets yet, please jump online, search for Sargam Music Academy. You'll find it, and try booking. The gold tickets are gone, but there are other seats available. It is a very big venue, and the parking is through Gate 6 and Gate 7 of the Somerville House. So we'll see you all there tonight. I will be there, and absolutely love this musical concert and the work that's been done by Sargam Music Academy. So we'll see you all there tonight. Well, right now it's time to go to our daily India report. With that, let's welcome Ankita.
Welcome to the Daily India report that brings you glimpses of the changing India and the growing engagement of the Indian diaspora with India. In our first story, India considers approving anti-COVID pill for adults. The Drugs Controller General of India is reviewing the clinical data of Molnupiravir, the world's first anti-COVID pill approved in the United Kingdom to treat COVID-19 among adults in India. Sun Pharmaceutical Industries said it is all set to introduce Merck Sharp Dohme and Ridgebacks Molnupiravir under the brand name Molnupiravir. Sun Pharma is an Indian company that entered into voluntary licensing agreements with Merck. The United States government is also reviewing the data of Molnupiravir trials. Adults at risk of COVID can take this pill to avoid severe symptoms or hospitalizations. However, experts have warned that anti-COVID pills are not alternatives to vaccines. The pills can be taken within the first few days of COVID symptoms. Molnupiravir, as a small molecule, does not require cold storage like messenger RNA vaccines. In the phase 3 trial by Merck, Molnupiravir significantly reduced the risk of hospitalization or death by around 50% in a planned interim analysis of the trial in at-risk, non-hospitalized adult patients with mild to moderate COVID-19. Based on the participants with available viral sequencing data, Molnupiravir demonstrated consistent efficacy across viral variants like Gamma, Delta and Mu. Indian government asked states to ramp up COVID vaccination as more than 100 million people overshot the time for the second dose. Indian Health Minister Mansukh Mandavia has urged state governments to make an all-out effort to ensure that over 120 million people who are due for their second dose of the COVID vaccine take it soon. The number of people overdue for the second dose has risen, according to Dr. V.K. Paul, member on Health in India's Niti Aayog. Dr. Paul said more than 100 million people had overshot the due date. In a meeting with state health ministers to push the door-to-door vaccination campaign, the union government suggested several measures such as the creation of multiple vaccination teams to ensure 100% coverage in a targeted area in a time-bound manner, development of a ranking mechanism for identifying and facilitating the vaccination teams, which administer the maximum number of vaccine doses every 24 hours and utilizing local weekly bazaars and huts for spreading awareness. Around 79% of the eligible adult population has received at least one dose of the COVID vaccine, whereas 38% have been covered with both doses. The Indian Health Minister cautioned against laxity in COVID-appropriate behavior, adding COVID-19 is not yet over and cases are rising globally. India says Chinese claims on border and creating villages are unjustified and illegal. As the Chinese Communist Party paved the way for President Xi Jinping to become President of China for life at the 6th plenum, India stated it would not accept Chinese illegal occupation nor its unjustified claims on the border. Responding to questions about reports of construction of Chinese dual-use villages in the border areas, particularly in Arunachal Pradesh, Indian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Arindam Bagchi told journalists India had conveyed its strong protest to such activities through diplomatic means and will continue to do so in the future. He said China has undertaken construction activities in the past several years along with the border areas, including in the areas that it illegally occupied over the decades. India has neither accepted such illegal occupation of its territory nor has it accepted the unjustified Chinese claims. China has built what are being called dual-use villages in the border regions in the eastern sector in parallel with its new boundary law, which empowers villages to take up combat roles, with the development seen as having the potential to heighten tensions and put both countries on a dangerous course. The Taliban rulers in Afghanistan have welcomed the Delhi Declaration emanating from a 8-country meeting hosted by India. In a reaction to the Delhi Declaration adopted by 8 countries on 10th November at the India Conference on Afghanistan, the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan has said that it had already fulfilled all of the demands mentioned by the conference. Afghan Foreign Ministry Deputy Spokesman Inamullah Samangani said the Islamic Emirate welcomes the India meeting. He assured that the Taliban is trying to take solid steps in governance and the world countries should not be worried about Afghanistan's soil being used against anyone. The India conference, in which the representatives of Russia, Iran and 5 Central Asian states participated, called for the formation of an inclusive government in Afghanistan that will counter terrorism and prevent Afghan soil from being used against other countries. Some political experts say that such meetings could be effective in ensuring stability and economic development. The India meeting is effective for Afghanistan because India is one of the 8 providing countries to Afghanistan and it is now also interested in supporting the country. The Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan was not invited to the India conference. Hosted by Indian National Security Advisor Ajit Doval, The dialogue witnessed participation from Iran, Russia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan. New Delhi had also invited China and Pakistan to join the talks, but the two countries chose not to accept the invitation. A joint declaration adopted by 8 countries asserted that Afghanistan's territory must not be used for terror activities. In addition to specifying that the situation in Afghanistan could impact regional security, the declaration called for an open and inclusive government in Kabul. Pakistan calls on India to reopen Kartarpur Corridor for Sikh pilgrims. The Pakistan government has called on India to reopen the Kartarpur Corridor and allow pilgrims to cross over into Pakistan on the occasion of Guru Nanak Dev's birth anniversary celebrations from November 17th to 26th. Marking the second anniversary of the opening of the Kartarpur Corridor, Pakistan has expressed hope that India would allow pilgrims to travel through the corridor in the spirit of cooperation. The Pakistan Foreign Office said in the last 2 years, the corridor has not only fulfilled the earnest desire of the Sikh community around the world for easy access to the revered site, but is also reflective of the primacy that Pakistan accords to all religious minorities in the country. It also reminded that the Kartarpur Corridor was described by UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres as a corridor of hope during his visit to Kartarpur Sahib in February 2020. Pakistan criticized India for refraining from opening the corridor despite reopening and resumption of international travels all over the world and opening of all religious places in the country. Pakistan also highlighted that the magnificent newly built Gurdwara Darbar Sahib Kartarpur complex is a gift by the people of Pakistan to the Sikh community in India and worldwide. Pakistan is willing to allow at least 3,000 devotees from across the world to participate in the upcoming birth anniversary celebrations of Guru Nanak, and it is looking forward to India reciprocating its offer. India IT services market booms in the first half of 2021. The Indian IT services market grew by 7.3% in the first half of 2021 compared to the 5.7% growth in the same period last year as enterprises continue to invest in digital transformation initiatives. Overall, the Indian IT and business services market was valued at $6.96 billion and recorded a 6.4% year-over-year growth in the January-June period compared to 5.1% in the first half of 2020, according to the International Data Corporation's worldwide semi-annual services tracker. Verticals like government and manufacturing, which delayed IT investments in 2020, hiked up their IT spend in 2021, and enterprises in the country continue to increasingly depend on IT service providers for solutions in areas like cloud, security, artificial intelligence, analytics, etc. The IT and business services market is projected to reach $19.93 billion by the end of 2025, growing a CAGR of 8.2% between 2020 to 2025. Dulquer Salman's eagerly awaited Malayalam movie Kurup hit the screens on November 12th. The much-awaited Malayalam movie Kurup starring Dulquer Salman hit theatres on November 12th. Kurup is directed by Srinath Rajendran. It is the story of Kerala's most wanted criminal Sukumara Kurup, who absconds after murdering a film representative, Chako, to embezzle the insurance money by scripting his own death. Kurup, according to police, was influenced by a German crime novel and tried to script his own death to get the insurance claim. The claim was for 800,000 rupees and Kurup killed Chako, a film representative, after giving him a lift in his car while Chako was waiting for a bus late at night. Sukumar Kurup reportedly fled abroad while his 2 associates, driver Ponappan and brother-in-law Bhaskar Pillai, were sentenced to life imprisonment. Sukumar Kurup has been on the list of absconding since January 1984, and the Chako murder case is one of the longest-running cases in the judicial history of the state. The movie, which was supposed to hit theatres on May 28, 2021, was delayed following the COVID pandemic that ravaged the state. The movie, which is produced on a budget of 350 million rupees, is being given a worldwide release. According to producers, the movie will be released in the US, the UK and Canada, along with Gulf countries and Singapore. The film is jointly produced by Wayfarer Films of Dulquer Salman along with M-Star Entertainments. The movie was shot in Kerala, Mumbai, Dubai, Mangaluru, Mysuru, Gujarat and Ahmedabad. Apart from Dulquer Salman, the cast includes Indrajit Sukumaran, Sunny Wayne, Shine Tom Chako, Shobita Dulipala and Bharat Srinivasan in key roles. In breaking news today, USA President Joe Biden has put into law yet another immigration-friendly move. The US government has agreed to provide automatic work authorization permits to spouses of H-1B visa holders, a step that would benefit thousands of Indian American women. The settlement in this regard was reached by the Department of Homeland Security in a class action lawsuit, which was filed by the American Immigration Lawyers Association on behalf of immigration spouses this summer. The litigation successfully achieved the reversal of the US Citizenship and Immigration Services policy that prohibited H-4 spouses from benefiting from the automatic extension of their employment authorization during the pendency of the standalone EAD applications. That's all for this bulletin of Daily India Report. Thank you for watching.
And thank you so much, Ankita, for that update. And once again, don't forget that tonight we have the Sargam Music Academy and the annual concert, and here's how you can get there.
Hi everyone, I'm Sasha. From Sargam Music Academy. Tomorrow we'll be performing at VPAC Somerville House from 5:30 p.m. onwards. Parking to the venue will be from Gate 6 and Gate 7. Tomorrow there'll be lots of things happening. There'll be music, dancing, mouth-watering food and raffle prizes that you can win. So, book your tickets online fast because tickets are selling out. Link in description. Bye!
And that's right. So we're hoping to see you all there tonight at Sargam Music Academy and the concert, which begins at 5:30 and Somerville House. Free parking through Gate 6 and Gate 7, as the girl said, and the delightful girls, they will be up on the stage, very talented and wonderful to see that all happening today. So we, make sure that if you haven't got your tickets yet, that you please do get your tickets, which are, well, of course, the gold tickets, the gold section has already been completely sold out, but as we know, IPEC, that is a very big venue. It is a huge venue, so there's seating available in the other areas if you so wish, and it will be a very entertaining evening on what is a very glorious Brisbane day today. 21 degrees, sunny, and just looking glorious out the window there. So it is just so wonderful. So Sargam Music Academy and the annual concert tonight. And we'd like to see you all there. And as the girls have mentioned there, it is going to be a beautiful evening with lots of functions and events that's taking place in there. And of course, yesterday was the launch of that Mahatma Gandhi statue in Melbourne, and our Prime Minister was there and he took part in that celebration as well.
This 2030 target is still a very contentious political issue that neither major party has committed to, and it's a topic that's likely to feature at some point in the campaign to come. James Day, ABC News, Canberra.
And we'll leave you with that. It's been wonderful having your company on this Saturday, the 13th of November 2021 on a very glorious Brisbane day, as I mentioned, and it was good to see that the Prime Minister attended a lot of Indian functions, the inauguration of the Gandhi statue, which is similar to the one that we have here in Roma Street Parklands, and that was in Melbourne yesterday. And yesterday he also visited some of the Indian businesses and the businesses that are doing well, and they have set up manufacturing, and because manufacturing is what's going to drive our economy. Here's that report once again.
We now have a million Australians in manufacturing jobs in Australia. Under Labor, 1 in 8 manufacturing jobs went. We've been able to turn that round as a government through our economic policies and get 1 million Australians back in manufacturing jobs here in Australia. And we're doing that by being smart about it. We're doing it by backing in Raja and Savi and so many other people like them who have invested in the facilities, in the technology, importantly in the people and the training, the products, the research that enables them to be a great success in manufacturing.
So there you go, Raja and Savi, and here's the other factory.
I'm a dress code creator.
All week, Scott Morrison's team have been setting up made-for-TV tours like this. The PM's been cooking, eating and posing for selfies in an attempt to show how Australian life is finally returning to normal as vaccination rates rise.
With the rising vaccination rate, we are going to expect a lot more easing of restrictions, and isn't it that wonderful to see that? And point to note there is, any field or every field that you go into, you'll find people of Indian origin, excelling. Did you look at those facilities? They are big, huge facilities. A lot of funds have been invested into those, and of course the Prime Minister to visit those facilities, speaks miles and volumes of the support that federal government and state governments are giving to the industries. And of course, the investment that has been put into this country by these companies as well. So well done. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'd leave you with that, and I hope to catch up with people here in Brisbane if you're coming to Sargam Music Academy's the musical concert tonight. Until Monday, it's goodbye from me. Remain safe. Enjoy this glorious weekend.